Senator Pan? Senator Pan? Members, could I please have your attention? Senator Pan, we're on file item 23. Are you ready to bring this measure forward? Okay. File item 25. Senator Stone. Secretary, please read.
Senate Joint Resolution 6 by Senator Stone relative to Iran.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, thank you for allowing me to bring forward SJR 6, a bipartisan resolution before you today for your consideration. I rise today to ask you to join me in sending a strong message to our President and our Congress and the people of the United States that peace is paramount and our national security is a priority. After the Iran Revolution in 1979, the Ayatollah Khomeini dismantled their secret nuclear program. The Ayatollah considered such weapons as haram or sinful, forbidden, unethical, and immoral in accordance with Muslim law. Back then, Iran signed several treaties, including the Biological Weapons Convention, the Chemical Weapons Convention, and the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. That's what Iran said, but Iran's actions have proven they can't be trusted to live up to their words. Iran has been playing a game of cat and mouse with the international community, including the International Atomic Energy Agency, over the resurging nuclear proliferation program. Iran claims its nuclear ambitions are for peaceful purposes, but one must ponder why Iran, home to the fourth largest oil reserves in the world with approximately 150 billion barrels of oil, would be seeking alternative energy for so-called peaceful purposes. In 2005, the international community demanded that Iran cease its nuclear enrichment programs and impose sanctions. Then Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad defied the United Nations demands, and in February 2006, he announced that Iran would resume enrichment of uranium, a process that would allow Iran to come into possession of a nuclear bomb. In December 2006, the UN Security Council Resolution 1737 imposed sanctions against Iran for failing to stop its uranium enrichment program. My friends, Iran didn't listen. In March 2007, the UN Security Council passed yet another resolution, 1747, to further increase sanctions on Iran because of its further enrichment program. And again, Iran didn't listen. In March 2008, the UN Security Council adopted yet another resolution, 1803, the third series of sanctions on Iran, and again, Iran didn't listen. In November 2011, the IAEA released a report that included a detailed account of possible military dimensions to Iran's nuclear program. And that, friends, brings us to today. The international community, including the P5+1 nations, that's China, France, Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, announced that they would engage and negotiate with Iran to stop international sanctions against Iran in exchange for Iran dismantling its nuclear program. Secretary of State John Kerry represents the United States at these negotiations. The deadline for a deal is June 30th, 2015, a short 2 weeks away. Many nations and people have concerns with a deal that would allow Iran to develop the capacity and technology to build a nuclear bomb. The leaders of Iran have called for the destruction of Israel. The leaders of Iran have called the United States the Great Satan. The leaders of Iran are known to be sponsors of terrorists who seek to kill innocent people around the world. Are we not to believe that if Iran acquires the capacity to build a nuclear weapon of mass destruction, that it will not use that technology to carry out threats to attempt to destroy Israel and kill people here in our own country? SJR 6 is a simple resolution. It puts us on record as encouraging our President and our Congress to work towards peace. It puts us on record as encouraging our President and Congress to work to ensure Iran does not develop a nuclear bomb that can be used against us. Iran has proven time and time again that it can't be trusted to abide by UN resolutions. Sanctions haven't worked. Our legislature can only send a message that echoes the comments of the great philosopher Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men, and I might add, myself, women, to do nothing. SGR is doing something. It may not compel Iran to comply, but it may help advocate a responsible peace-seeking solution. We cannot sign a deal that lets Iran, a nation that has funded terrorism around the world, including Hezbollah, Hamas, the Taliban, and al-Qaeda, to build a nuclear weapon that can kill millions. If Iran truly wants to develop a nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, any deal must include international oversight in perpetuity. The deal should not include a timeline for ending this oversight. If Iran is able to develop a nuclear bomb, our nation's security and our citizens are put in harm's way. SGR 6, my friends, is a vote for peace. It is a vote for national security. It's a vote you can be proud of. Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on SGR 6.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Debate or discussion? Senator Hancock.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this body has taken to doing a few too many foreign policy items. And we're not a foreign policy making group unless it is something extremely urgent and immediate, and we have thorough discussions in our caucuses, and it is a consensus position of the legislature. I am going to be staying off these foreign policy bills, and I would urge the Rules Committee to hold them in committee.
Thank you, Senator Hancock. Members, further debate or discussion? Seeing none, Senator Stone, would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Aye. Galgiani. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Aye. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Lara. Leno. Aye. Leyva. Aye. Liu. McGuire. Mendoza. Mitchell. Monning. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Aye. Wynn. Nilsson. Aye. Pan. Pavley. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wykowski. Wolk.
Secretary, please call the absent members.
Galgiani. Aye. Hancock. Hueso. Lada. Liu. McGuire. Mendoza. Mitchell. Monning. Wynn. Aye. Pan. Pavley. Wykowski. Wolk.
Ayes 28, no 0. Resolution is adopted. Members, we're now going to move to privileges of the floor. Pro Tem De Leon.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you for going back to motions and resolutions and privileges of the floor. Colleagues, with urgency, the Pope today in his encyclical calls upon us as policymakers, not just nationwide, but globally as well, to develop policies so that in the next few years, the emission of carbon dioxide and other highly polluting gases can be drastically reduced. And with us today, colleagues, is the woman leading the charge to develop an international strategy for such action. I would like to introduce as our very special guest, the Honorable Ms. Cristina Figueres, who is the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In short, she is the Secretary for Climate Change for the United Nations globally. She is visiting California to meet with leaders across government, business, and philanthropy to bolster support for an international agreement on climate through the formal United Nations climate negotiation process at the end of this year at the COP Conference of Parties 21 in Paris, France. Cristina Figueres was appointed as the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in 2010. Ms. Figueres has a long trajectory in the field of global climate change. She's directed 4 consecutive successful Conference of the Parties, and is now in charge with the intergovernmental process to deliver the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change. I had the distinct privilege and honor to attend the Conference of Parties 20 just recently in December in Lima, Peru, where we had Secretary Kerry as well as other presidents and prime ministers from throughout the world attend. This one in December, you'll have every single president and every prime minister and every secretary official from throughout the world convening in Paris 2015. Through her previous work, Ms. Figueres designed and helped establish national climate change programs throughout Latin America, and today plays a central role in the global climate change discussions as Executive Secretary of the UN framework. As California continues to cement its climate leadership, it is important for us to engage in the global discussion, and that is why I am very excited to have Executive Secretary Figueres with us here today. What we have already done here and what we will do next will continue to set the stage for global action to address climate change. With that, she's going to share a few words, but before she shares a few words, let's give her a very warm embrace from the California State Senate.
Good morning, buenos días. Primero a mis consanguíneos latinoamericanos, muchas gracias por esta oportunidad, and if I may be so informal to call you dear pro tem also, and distinguished members of the Senate. Thank you very much for having me here. You know, usually one starts by saying, well, it's a little bit difficult to follow so-and-so. Today, I have to follow someone who's not even here. I have to follow the Pope. How difficult is that, right? He certainly has set the bar for all of us by truly making a clarion call to the moral responsibility that every single decision maker, no matter what level of government, no matter what level of corporate decision making you have, I think he has called us all to order. And I think we all stand up to that call. Now, my dear senators, I'm very appreciative of this opportunity today. I know that you are used to thinking that California is completely unique. I would agree. What is possible in California is not possible anywhere. Without denying that reality, I also want to put it to you that California, from my perspective, because I work at the global level, is actually a microcosm. Now, for a state that is as large as California, you're probably not used to thinking of California as being a micro anything, but let me tell you that you are a microcosm of the world. Certainly from the perspective of climate change, because you have here realities that are very, very in tune and very in line with the realities of the larger world. You have an economic base that is as diverse as going from the highest tech all the way to agriculture. You have so many different cultures here, perhaps not quite as many as the United Nations, but getting there. You're definitely getting there. And you have a huge economic impact, income disparity. That is something that is of concern to all of us. All of these issues are issues that the world grapples with, just like you grapple with. And in that context, the fact that way back in 2006, and thank you very much again, Fran, for that amazing leadership, since 2006 that you have been able to, within these beautiful building, to pass legislation that was truly landmark legislation then, and that since then, you have been able to implement and prove what the entire world wants to achieve now in Paris. And that is to prove that it is possible to continue growing your economy, to continue increasing your GDP, while bringing down your greenhouse gas emissions, to de-link those two curves that traditionally and historically have been one and the same. That de-linking is absolutely at the heart of what 195 countries are still grappling with. How are we going to do that? And not only have you been able to do that, my friends, but you're doing it with the Pope's call in mind, which means intentionally making sure that the benefits go to the underprivileged, to those who are most vulnerable to climate change in California, and the same challenge in the world at large. You are proving that that is possible. The world wants to do that. The world is committed, 195 countries, but they don't know how. California has figured out how. So I am here to tell you, the world is looking at you, whether you know that or not. The world is looking at California. The world wants to know, how did you do that? How are you going to continue to, in fact, even expand that ambition of California? And that's why I'm here. If California weren't squarely being observed by the world for lessons learned, I would have no business being here, because I don't usually have the honor of working with state-level governments. But the fact that California has been such a visionary, such a cutting-edge government and state, truly, I have to tell you, it is really an inspiration. And there are 195 countries that will go to Paris. Knowing that that is the intent, we have to delink those, but we cannot leave the most vulnerable populations of the world behind. California has an amazing story to tell. So please do tell. I'm also telling the story of California, but nobody can tell it better than you. However, those who know me know that I never stand and never speak in public without challenging everybody. So in addition to the accolades to what you've already done, here is my challenge to you. From my perspective, you have two tasks ahead of you. Number one, increase the time frame and your ambition. Yes, you have 2020 targets, fantastic. Jerry Brown has already put 2030 targets, 2050 targets. Can that actually be moved forward? Can you increase the ambition of what you're doing into other sectors? Because frankly, we need to do that. So it is increasing ambition and increasing the time frame. And the second task is to increase the geographic boundary of your influence, of your leadership. Call it exporting leadership. California needs to export leadership. I really thank California for the very amazing leadership that you're having with the Under 2 MOU, currently already 14 regions and states around the world, including developing countries as diverse to California as Nigeria. That is true leadership, to be able to bring economies that are very, very different under the same concept and be able to share with them lessons learned and measures that have actually worked in California. So expand ambition, expand the time frame, expand your leadership. And if you all manage to do that, I can just retire to a beautiful beach in California.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Executive Secretary Figueres. We appreciate it. Members, we're now going to move forward, if we could, in just a moment. Yes.
Mr. President, colleagues, I just want to mention too, as soon as we finish up floor session, which should be very, very soon, for those who want to engage with Ms. Cristiana Figueres a little more, room 215, I'll be more than happy to welcome everyone, Democrats as well as Republicans, everyone together.
Wonderful.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Members, if we could move forward, we still have a few items on the file. File item 32, Senator Pavley. Are you prepared to bring file item 32 forward? Pass on file. All right, members, we'll move to file item 34. Senator Allen. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 11 by Assemblymember Burke relative to military bases.
Senator Allen.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and members. I'm pleased to present AJR 11. California, more than any other state, has borne its share of hardship caused by the federal base realignment and closure process, BRAC, and with leaders in Washington, D.C. suggesting that another round may soon be upon us, this resolution sends the message that California stands united in its belief that we have sacrificed enough. When a military base closes, it is extremely painful and sometimes impossible for the community where that base is located to recover. And under 5 rounds of BRAC, California has endured the closure of 25 major bases. Under the first 4 rounds alone, California lost more federal military jobs than were lost in all of the other 49 states combined. So today, despite these losses, California continues to house over 30 major federal military installations, which employ more than 350,000 people and generate over $71 billion in direct spending. And California has so much to offer to our nation and its military forces, as this resolution recognizes, such as unparalleled land, air, and sea ranges that provide the ability to train all types of forces year-round, effectively, efficiently, and economically, strategic location in the Pacific Theater, the ability to recruit and train highly skilled and educated personnel, synergies between military installations in the private sector, and a vast intellectual capital that has developed in California since World War II. And I also want to point out that we have several important urban military bases in California. And I think that they deserve special attention, and for this reason. I do get concerned about some of the cultural divides happening in this country, and I know there's sometimes a tendency on the part of the military to say, well, let's move all of our operations into rural Nebraska where we're going to be able to save a little bit of money, where the costs of living are lower, where the costs of land are lower. But I think the more that happens, the more this divide starts to stretch further and further open. I want our military to have a stake in our cities and have a cultural connection to our cities. I also want our cities to have a cultural connection to our military, which of course is out there defending us every day. And I'm concerned about that divide. And so I think it's another reason why it's so important that we raise our voices in support for those important California bases that are both serving our military so ably, being able to take advantage of the extraordinary social capital and intellectual capital and academic and technical capital that exists all over our state to serve our military, while also contributing to its culture and to our military's connectedness with every single part of our state and every single part and culture of our nation. So for these reasons and more, please join with me to send a clear message to our leaders in Washington that California deserves and desires to retain our military installations and facilities. This bill has received unanimous support over on the Assembly side and also in our Veterans Affairs Committee here, and I respectfully request your aye vote.
Great. Thank you, Senator Allen. Members, any debate or discussion? Senator Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise to echo the thoughts of my colleague in support of AJR 11. My district is home to two military bases and is threatened by future bases closures. The Los Alamitos Joint Forces Training Base and the Naval Weapons Station at Seal Beach. Both of these bases are important to the country's security and are key economic drivers in Orange County's economy. The Los Alamitos Joint Forces Training Base is used by the Army in conjunction with the National Guard to train reserve forces called upon when our nation needs them most. In addition to its economic impact, the Joint Forces Training Base also serves a vital hub for California's emergency and disasters preparedness. This base hosts the Governor's Office of Emergency Services and is capable of immediately being transformed into an emergency support station area in the event of a disaster. The Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station has provided weapons and maintenance support to the Pacific Fleet since the middle of the Second World War. This base continues to assist Coast Guard vessels and Marine Corps units stationed both at sea and ashore. The Seal Beach is the only weapons station port within 1,000 miles of the U.S. fleet in San Diego, facilitating its rank as the Navy's primary West Coast ordnance installation. Since reductions in 1997, the facility has employed approximately 500 civilians and 150 military personnel, while being recognized as the most cost-effective weapons station in the Navy. A study conducted in 2012 determined the base provides a $136 million impact on the regional economy, creating more than $6 million in state and local taxes. This base supports more than 2,000 jobs in both the public and private sector in the city of approximately 24,000 residents. I hope that Congress thinks of our local communities that will be drastically impacted by future base closures. I urge and I vote on this important resolution.
Thank you, Senator Nguyen. Members, any further debate or discussion? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand in support of AJR 11. Riverside County is home to the Navy Surface Warfare Center in Norco, which has over 2,000 jobs that contribute greatly to our community and our national security. And one unique feature about this center is that they develop patents for the Navy, and they get royalties on these patents, and in a way they're very much self-funded. So they've been a great contributor to our local economy, and more importantly, contribute to our national security, and urge the support on AGR 11 for those reasons, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Senator Fuller.
In a paper by John Stisson and Emmy Nicaro at Columbia University, it identifies that a 1% aggregate increase in spending on the GDP by the federal government translates to a 3% GDP increase in California. And basically the converse. If the federal government spends 1% less GDP aggregate spending, then California's economic impact can drop 3%. I happen to have 5 military bases: Fort Irwin, Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center at 29 Palms, Marine Corps Logistics Base at Barstow, Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake, Edwards Air Force Base. And this 3% drop could be very, very devastating to my communities and local economy. Throughout California, it would be very devastating to all of us as well. And if we look at the total number of military installations in California, we find that only Illinois has less than us. So folks, it's a great thing that the governor has appointed the Governor's Military Council in order to provide advocacy to continue these bases and to work with those bases to increase our defense possibilities, and it's also great for our nation. We're in a unique location to be able to defend our country, and we should take advantage of that. Thank you for this resolution. I support it today.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Senator Bates, followed by Senator Berryhill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise in support and thank the senator and the assembly member for bringing this very important issue to our chambers. This 36th Senate District is home to Camp Pendleton Marine Air Corps Base, and certainly it has the economic engine for South Orange County and North San Diego County. And in addition, it is the training base on the West Coast for our Marine forces, serving certainly to protect the West Coast in any attack that would come. And it's also very important overall to the safety. It has been a first responder when the horrible fires swept through San Diego. So thank you, and I join in support.
Thank you, Senator Bates. Senator Berryhill.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. The 8th Senate District is home to the Marine Corps' Mountain Warfare Training Center in Bridgeport, very unique area. This training area conducts unit and individual training courses to prepare Marine Corps joint and allied forces for operations in mountainous, high altitude, and cold weather environments in support of the regional combatant commanders. This is a very unique area. In the wintertime, it gets very cold out there, and the men and women that come out of this training have been sent to some of the most dangerous combat zones in the world. I want to take a minute to recognize their hard work, the sacrifices they make, that their families make, and to keep our nation free. Thank you, and I want to thank the author for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Berryhill. Senator Vidak.
Mr. President, members, I too stand in support of AJR 11. Kings County, I represent the Naval Air Station Lemoore, the Navy's master air station for the West Coast, home to 284 jet aircraft, nearly 14,000 jobs, and 982 million annual economic output. Makes it one of the largest employers in the Central Valley. I support this.
Thank you, Senator Vidak. Senator Monning.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, I just want to rise to stand as well. My district, 17th District, Monterey County, the closure of Fort Ord had a major economic impact on the economy of Monterey. The remaining bases there, the Defense Language Institute, the Naval Postgraduate School, are among the leading civilian employers as well as military employers. The Naval Postgraduate School hosts the only and leading post-conflict resolution and reconstruction center that is working globally in post-conflict resolution and reconstruction around the world. Defense Language Institute, of course, is the leading language training area, not just for intelligence training, but also for participation in conflict resolution around the world. So I could go on, but I just want to make sure that we as a body understand the tremendous economic impact these base closures can have on all of our districts. I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Monning. Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the great privilege of representing the Navy SEALs training in Coronado, the Top Gun pilots flying in Miramar, and the Marines training at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and I too join in supporting this resolution.
Thank you. Any further debate or discussion? Senator Nielsen.
I will add to this long list Beale Air Force Base in Yuba County, wherein the eyes of the United States military reside.
Great. Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Senator Allen, would you like to close?
Yes, wonderful hearing about all the fantastic bases all over the state. I thank Madam Speaker and Assemblymember Burke for their leadership on this measure and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen.
Oh, excuse me. Members, would there be an objection to unanimous roll call? Seeing none, ayes 37, no 0, measure passes.